Okay, so I've been doing some reflections on my childhood, and I'm just sort of doing them more from an observer's perspective. Like, I'm just kind of observing my childhood, observing the events that took place in my childhood, not at all from an emotional place. I've sort of, over the years, emotionally distanced myself away from all the emotions involved with being a child, being raised in a certain environment, raised in a certain way. And just to give you guys a little bit of an idea in regards to my childhood, it was a violent childhood, and the violence was domestic. And because I come from a line, from a generation after generation of families who beat up their kids as a way of disciplining them. And when I say beat up, I'm not talking about a little slap on your head. I'm talking about violent outbreaks. Okay? I mean, really violent. Okay? To the point where you could almost kill the child if you keep going with the violence that you use on your child. Okay, now this was something, it was a tradition that goes back many generations in the particular family line that I found myself incarnated in. So amongst that, I've also had much violence on the streets. I happen to be a really small, skinny, short kid. I was always the smallest guy in the class, very easy picking. This is why I sort of ended up, building muscle and, doing martial arts, because I had to defend myself. That was the reason. Because I constantly grew up having to defend myself, and I've gotten in at least, like, this is no exaggeration, at least 30 fist fights while growing up. So, I can go on and on and on, but we would need somebody in the background to play the violin. And we need some really empathic hearts to sit here and cry so that we could make a soap opera out of it. Okay? Uh, there was much more to it. This was just sort of one aspect of it. But to put it in a nutshell, I did not have a very pretty childhood. Okay? Not a very pretty one, not a very ideal one, not exactly the type of childhood you would write in a book and call the book How to Raise Your Children in an Ideal and Compassionate and Loving Way. So, now that I'm able to look at it and not be emotionally invested in it, it just happened. This is just the way it is. Part of me is like, get on with it, dude. Like, stop. What do you, it's a memory, right? It's a memory. And I've reconciled all the issues that I had with the people, in the childhood, one of them being my dad. Okay, I mean, think about it. If you were somebody's regular punching bag while growing up, you would probably harbor a lot of resentment to that person, whether it's your dad or your uncle or anybody, right? And I did harbor those resentments. And if I go back in time, 5, 6, 7 years ago, I was full of anger, full of rage, full of resentment. And when I was looking back at my childhood, I looked back at it with all the emotional investment involved in it, because I primarily at the time identified with this particular character that I'm in. So it's like my pride was hurt. Now I could look at it and say, well, that's just what happened. That's just what happened. And because I could look at it as something that happened, I can reconcile it. And one of the figures in this is my father, who I love very dearly. I not only not have any resentment towards him, but he's one of the few people that the mention of his name really can make me cry, because he's such a loving person. He's very compassionate, and everything that he's done because that's what his dad did to him, whose dad did to him, and he did it out of love. Okay, and he really did it out of love. That's what's so tragic about the whole thing. He really did it all out of love. So I could look at it and say, well, that's just why my dad did it, because his dad did it. And I could easily look at it and I could easily let go of it and forgive and love, which I've done. Okay? And the way you've let go of something is when you meet the other person. And I'll tell you, like, my very recent meetings with my dad have been very, very warm, extremely warm, because he's obviously changed as a person. I've changed as a person, and we've both come to let go of all of it and just embrace one another in the moment. And there were many other things. See, I growing up, I had not, when I became an atheist, I had a beef with Islam also, because I thought part of the reason why I grew up such a mess, such a sexually repressed, troubled on so many levels, was because of the indoctrination of religion. Growing up in a very conservative Muslim family. Now, I've also reconciled that, because I sort of consider myself to be somewhat of a Sufi now, amongst all the other labels, of course, because I mentioned in a previous video that depending on the day, today I could be a Buddhist, tomorrow I could be a Hindu, the day after I could be a Sufi. But I've also now sort of come to embrace that tradition as well, instead of demonizing it all the way. Although, depending on the context, you can hear me quite often be critical of modern mainstream Islam, okay, which I am critical of. But I've also come to reconcile that relationship, and I've come to embrace the truths that are laid down in Islam. And I practice them in my own way through Sufism. So now, why am I giving you all this introduction? Well, I'm giving you all this introduction because I have been contemplating, why is it that all these things happen to me? Why is it that I was, violently beaten up? Why is it that I was beaten up on the streets, but I was also beaten up at home? Why is it that I had such a rough childhood? Why is it that I chose to incarnate in Qatar? Okay, I mean, look, I'll tell you the reason. Plain and simple. Very obvious from an observer's point of view, not obvious at all from the character's point of view, which is the emotional investment of, why did this happen to me? Why couldn't my father be better? Why couldn't the society be better and more tolerant, etc.? Right? That's an emotionally invested place. That's the character's point of view. But if you look at an observer's point of view, it's very obvious. I was burning karma. That's the reason. I was burning karma. And I needed to burn some old karma. So to give you an example, and this is without a reasonable doubt, from an observer's, it's very obvious from an observer's standpoint. Very, very obvious. I must have been my father's father in a previous life. And I must have, that's the only explanation. I must have violently beat him up. Okay? That's very obvious from where I'm standing right now. And I'm standing on the balcony, observing this whole game. Believe me, that's very obvious. In a previous life, I must have been doing to my dad what he did to me in this life. And the one before, he must have doing the same thing that I was doing to him. And do. On and on it goes. All the way back, who knows when it all started. And the way this karma gets resolved is when the two people involved in this finally let go and embrace one another and love one another, which is the point that me and my father have come to at this point. My father's aware of my religious affiliation nowadays, and he's sort of not very happy with it, but he's just become such a tolerant person overall. He's changed tremendously. And he knows this, but he's actually, to my surprise, have chosen to accept me and embrace me regardless, even though my dad is a practicing Muslim. Oh, he's conservative too. Conservative practicing Muslim. And to my surprise, he's actually come to accept the way I am in many ways now. He does give me advice from time to time. He loves me and he wants me to go to heaven, right? That he wants me to go to heaven from his perspective. So But he's come to, and I've come to just, I don't care that that happened. I really don't. I don't. So what? I'm not the only one. I mean, the other thing is like everybody suffers. Life is suffering. I'm not special in my suffering. I'm not special that I had a bad childhood. That does not make me special. In fact, that makes me normal. Most people have a shitty childhood, one way or another. So I can stop being so emotionally attached to it and be like, why did this happen to me? Why me? Why me? Well, now it's actually pretty obvious. Burning karma. And I'm really glad that, in this particular case, me and my father have come to the place where we have let go of all of it. So now we don't have to do this anymore. Okay, we're done with beating him up, him beating me up, and having to repeat this. We're done with it. That's how you resolve karma. You burn it away, and then you forgive and you let go. And if you forgive and you let go, it's done. The karma run its course. Now, who knows how long this karma has been running its course? Who knows who was the first one to beat the other up and who was the one to repeat it? Again, it's one consciousness anyway. So it's one consciousness doing it to consciousness. Who knows where it began? The consciousness is eternal. There's no beginning and no end to it, okay? The way you burn the karma is you just let it run its course and you forgive and you let go. You forgive and you let go. So, then, because there are no accidents in this business, this is a perfectly designed game, okay? This is perfect. Life is perfect. Everything's perfect in it. Perfect doesn't mean good, doesn't mean we love it. It just means it's complete, it's perfect. Nothing happens by accident. Cause and effect. Every action has a reaction. That's karma. That's what karma is. Karma is not too fancy as you think it may be, or I know it has some religious annotations to it and whatnot, but really it's just the law of cause and effect. Every action has a reaction. Nothing is by accident. So then looking at my life, looking at my childhood, seeing that it's not by accident that all these things happen, that there must have been something propelling, some kind of a momentum, some kind of previous causes that are unconscious to me in this lifetime that have led me to incarnate in such a low vibration, okay, a low vibrational place, environment, and have to go through these very unpleasant experiences. So the way I look at it now is just burning karma, burning karma, burning karma, burning karma. And so because you recognize there's no accidents, they can't be an accident. Not even possible. The notion that something is accidental, that any experience you have is accidental, it comes from ignorance. Ignorance of the true nature of things, of the way things are. That's what the Buddha kept pointing to. Ignorance, ignorance. When people asked him, why are we in this predicament? He says, ignorance. We do not know that this is our predicament. We are not aware. So if you're not aware of the cycle of death and rebirth and reincarnation and karma, you're in a way ignorant of the true nature of things. And so because of that, your dilemmas in life, your predicaments will always go unexplained. They will always go unexplained. Everything does have an explanation. We live within the illusion, within the cycle of death and rebirth. The law that runs it is the law of cause and effect, of karma, of action. Every action has a reaction. Okay? So maybe this is an invitation for you. Instead of lamenting and crying over what happened to you in your childhood, or that person did this to you, or even sexually abused you in any way, shape, or form, recognize with your third eye, with your higher wisdom, that is simply karma running its course, karma burning, just burning karma, and be grateful for it. Because that karma has to be burnt one way or another. And the gratitude that I have now is the gratitude that, good, we've now burned it, we've run through it. And now I'm in a much better place in my life. I am in kind of in a kingdom of heaven now. I mean, you guys see me, I'm always cracking a smile, cracking jokes here and there, never really taking things too seriously, even the most of serious things. Like this topic is pretty serious, but you could see there's always a smirk on my face, okay? Because really, I'm in a pretty good place. I'm in a really good place. I genuinely good place. It's difficult to take things too seriously. It's difficult not to laugh at even the most tragic of things. And yeah, but I have to be grateful because now the karma's burnt. Thank God. It's like a weight on your shoulder. I don't have to carry that anymore. Oh boy, I don't have to carry that anymore. It's done. It run its course. So then, it's an invitation for you to look at things with wisdom, because that wisdom will illuminate you and will give you the insights and will give you the higher wisdom to recognize why things happen and how they happen. And so, even a more extreme case, you getting sexually abused, a very, very, very good chance that you've done the same thing to that sentient being that abused you. Very good chance. It might not have even been in the most recent one. In the most recent life, it could have been 10 lifetimes ago, 15 lifetimes ago, 20 lifetimes ago. Yeah, this is a very sophisticated system, and God is God doesn't think like a human being. You are God experiencing a human being. You, in your highest form, in your divine self, okay, you do not think like a human being. To you, this is all a simulation, and suffering is the element, the variable in which you interact with this simulation. So to you, so what if I suffer for a lifetime? So what if this? So what if that? From the divine perspective, it's like, okay, all right, like that's all an illusion anyway. It's all time and space. I'm outside of time and space, and I'm an eternal being, and I ultimately do not suffer. But to make this convincing, to make the simulation convincing, to make this illusion convincing from God's perspective, you have to instill and infuse this element which feels very real, the element of suffering, the dark element of things. Okay? And yeah, looking at my own childhood has given me, now from a more objective place, has given me that insight and the gratitude, the contentment that goes along with how the karma played itself out. Also, the wisdom, the understanding that there must be older karma that has to yet run its course. And so, when quote unquote bad things happen, I must be diligent and wise to recognize that once again, that is just old karma running its course. Who knows? Maybe when I'm older, when I'm 70, 80, who knows? I might get some kind of a disease or something, even though I have like taken care of my health down to the T. I might get cancer or something, and I would hopefully in that age understand that, okay, that's just some karma playing itself out, and now I have to live through this disease in my old age, and I have to go through this. Okay, just old actions, and now this is happening. Right? Now, the karma could also be from this lifetime. So older people get, say, like really bad diseases when they're older, cancer or something, because they smoked, for example, lung cancer, and that's because this person has been a smoker. Well, the karma is the karma of abusing your body, because God consciousness likes you to be respectful of all sentient beings. That includes your own physical body, right? In all of life. So because you have abused it, the karma now is this disease you get, called lung cancer, and all the pain associated with it. It's just now you're reaping what you have sown earlier on, which is an abuse of the life force going through you. Sometimes you might have really, really taken care of your health the whole time, the whole way through, all of your life. And you've been an example, a role model of health. Everyone used you as the healthiest person in our community, in our neighborhood. And yet, you somehow ended up with some kind of a cancer growing up. You didn't even know why. Doctors can't diagnose it. Well, that's probably older karma from previous lives playing itself out now. Okay? This higher wisdom can help us get through the pain, can help us get through the suffering, can help put things into perspective. And when things are put into perspective and the veil of ignorance is lifted, then we are able to see things as they are, accept things as they are, and be present in the moment. So hopefully this gives you insights to your own predicaments. I know you've all got your own predicaments, one way or another. Okay, it could be a childhood predicament that is still carrying itself. It could be a recent breakup with someone. It could be somebody close to you recently died. You might have just had a fight with someone. And recognize that there are no accidents in this business. Okay? So, this cup of peppermint tea is sponsored by our beautiful Patreons. Okay? You guys are supporting this channel. You guys are awesome. This is good karma for me. I must have been on the other end of it in a previous life. I must have also contributed to all the Patreons that are contributing to me, and now it's the cycle running itself. And this is a good cycle, good karma, right? So, thank you guys. I love you. And if you would like to give back to me giving to you in a previous life, if you would like to run through that karma, so you don't have to listen to me annoying you about, contributing to my Patreon in another life, you could simply burn off the karma and let go of it. Duh, this guy always like really, let me just get on with it. Let me just burn this good karma and let's be done with it. If you would like to burn good old karma, okay, then contribute to Patreon and sponsor these beautiful, lovely, warm peppermint tea that I drink on these videos. And we'll have to change the drink as the weather gets better. So, thank you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. And that's about it. Until next time, may the force be with you.